You are Dragonborn. I can feel it. And yet... So you have slain Alduin. Well done. I could have slain him myself back when I walked the earth. But I chose a different path.
Okay, let's put that to the test then. Miraak is arrogant, something that is extremely obvious while playing the Dragonborn DLC. Given how powerful he is, you can understand why he has a high opinion of himself. Though, that first encounter you had with him, if you had finished the main questline before going to Solstein, is the biggest example of his ego, as he believes he could have slain Alduin. But that raises a fascinating question. Could Miraak defeat Alduin? Is Miraak so full of himself he thinks he could kill the World Eater? Or is the first Dragonborn truly capable of taking down Alduin? Let's find out what would happen if things went differently, and the two dangerous foes the last Dragonborn had to contend with went at it themselves. Who would come out on top? Going by many different names and titles such as the World Eater, the Twilight God, the First Dragon, or the God of Time, Alduin without question is the most powerful of all the dragons, which is saying something as dragons in the Elder Scrolls universe are closely related to the Aedra than any other mortal or creature. Dragons are ageless and immortal, possessing a soul that is beyond physical death, classifying dragons as divine figures, which makes sense as many Nords in Skyrim view Alduin as the firstborn of Akatosh, the creator of the dragon civilization and the harbinger of the apocalypse in Nord mythology. In the lore, it states that Alduin destroyed the previous world so that the current one can begin, by destroying the Kalpa, which simply put is a period of time in which the Elder Scrolls exist. After destroying it, a new world is created, replacing it, making Alduin a creator and a destroyer. Now, all of that may sound mythical and a bit abstract, but what is Alduin truly capable of? What are his powers, abilities, feats? Let's look into it. Alduin is a dragon. Obviously, meaning he has many attributes that all dragons have, like being able to fly, using their bite and tail in combat, and being immortal, unless their soul gets absorbed by a Dragonborn. But the most important ability in a dragon's arsenal is their ability to shout. Alduin is capable of 5 different shouts he can use in combat that we see in-game. Those being Unrelenting Force, Fire Breath, Frost Breath, those 3 being the biggest common shouts that almost all dragons can use. Then we get to 2 specialized shouts that Alduin can make use of. The first being the Dragon Fireball shout, which is similar to Fire Breath, but instead of a stream of fire being shot out, it is a huge fireball, which can do some hefty damage. Then we get to his last shout, which doesn't have an official name for it, but we all know what it is. When he activates it, meteors will begin to fall from the sky. Then we get to his other shouts he is capable of, such as being able to bring the dragons back to life, which is first shown during the quest A Blade in the Dark, where Alduin uses it to bring back Salakanir. Then we also have the shout in which he engulfed all of Sovngarde in a mist that he uses to consume the souls residing there. Another thing Alduin has is that he is resistant to 50% of all damage. Let's not forget that he could also travel to different realms, such as when he went to Sovngarde to consume the souls of the dead to become more powerful. The same place where he engulfed the entire realm in his fog, many times over when the last Dragonborn and the legendary Nordic heroes were trying to disperse it. The size of Sovngarde is a bit iffy, as the sizes range from being as big as a planet to being infinite in size. I couldn't get a definite answer, and I'll leave that to your own interpretation on how big Sovngarde is, but regardless, that is impressive. Or how he withstood the power of an Elder Scroll when the trio of Nordic heroes used it against him and only got flung forward in time, but not before killing one of them. Upon his return, he would bring back legions of dragons from the dead, leading to the Dragon Crisis. Alduin is an unstoppable force, however he is not invincible, as one thing that really could damage him was the shout Dragonrend, as it forces dragons to experience the concept of mortality, and that was the only way for the last Dragonborn to damage Alduin, evident during their first fight at the Throw of the World and last fight in Sovngarde. And the last Dragonborn beats him, but, and it is a huge but, the last Dragonborn was not able to absorb his soul, meaning that Alduin will return again, and next time, we are not going to have a Dragonborn there to stop him. Much of what is known has been lost through the ages. He was Dragonborn, yet served the dragons. a priest in their order, highly esteemed and very powerful. Then he turned against them, becoming something they feared. Miraak was a very powerful dragon priest and the first ever Dragonborn, meaning he has identical abilities to the last Dragonborn, but has other things going for him as well, as he would be trained under Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of Knowledge and Fate, and learned even more powerful abilities, which led to him enacting his own rebellion against his dragon masters. However, it would be thwarted by another dragon priest named Valak, in which their battle allegedly broke the island of Solstein off of mainland Skyrim as a result. Upon his defeat, Miraak would spend his time in the realm of Apocrypha, gaining more power, until the events of the Dragonborn DLC take place. Let's take a look at Miraak's equipment. His sword takes the shape of a tentacle when swung, and has the enchantment of absorbing the stamina of the person who got hit with it, while his staff sprays writhing tentacles on the ground that stagger and poison foes that enter them. Moving to his armor, each piece of his robe and mask are enchanted as well. Both his boots and gloves have the effect of adding 5% to the dragon breath and spell absorption of Miraak's robes, while his robes have the ability to absorb 15% of the magicka from the dragon breath and spells, with a chance to spawn a tentacle explosion when hit. Then we move on to his mask, which increases his magical pool from 40 to 70 points. Like other dragon priests, Miraak is capable of using magic in combat, such as being able to cast powerful lightning bolts, generating wards, and the usage of healing spells. However, his real power comes from his shouts, as he has 8 different shouts he can use in combat. Those being Fire Breath, Frost Breath, Bend Will, Dragon Aspect, Become Ethereal, Cyclone, Whirlwind Sprint, and Unrelenting Force, making him quite a powerhouse in a fight. But to add even further into it, Miraak can kill dragons with a single shout, in which he can seal their souls, leading to him replenishing his health and gaining an additional boost. But his most iconic power has to be being able to bend the will of people and dragons while trapped in Apocrypha, as well as being able to absorb the power of dragons that the last Dragonborn has slain, stealing their power from him by astral projecting. Miraak is hands down one of the most powerful people that the last Dragonborn has ever encountered, leading to him having to make a deal with Hermaeus Mora to beat him. Hell, even need a little help to take him out for good. Alright, so based on everything that I went over, who do you think wins this? Alduin or Miraak? I gotta be honest with you, I think Alduin has this in the bag, as Miraak does not have many win conditions, if any at all. Allow me to explain. The big reasons as to why the last Dragonborn was able to compete with Alduin were due to the allies that the last Dragonborn had and Dragonren. In both fights, the last Dragonborn had help from very powerful figures. Parthenax helped in the first fight on the Throne of the World, and the Nordic heroes helped in the last fight in Sovngarde. Miraak doesn't really have allies. The dragons he has under his will, he would use as a way to boost his own power than have actually be used to help him. Do you think any of the Seekers or Lurkers would do much against Alduin? I don't think so. While for Hermaeus Mora, wouldn't want to help Miraak, as he would be smart enough to know that Miraak wouldn't be able to win. While for Dragonrend, it is very clear that Miraak does not know that shout, and as a result, that handicaps him. Could Miraak learn Dragonrend? Now, you can make the argument that maybe during his time in Apocrypha, Miraak could have learned it. Or maybe he begged Tentacle Daddy to give him that knowledge, assuming that he knew it. Granted, it would give Miraak an advantage, and he could last longer, particularly if we factor in Dragon Aspect being used as well. However, Miraak has shitty weapons, because do you think that his staff will have an effect on Alduin? No, he would just be flying the entire time, and I don't think that staff have good range. Unless we give Miraak Dragonrend, he could maybe pull out a win over time, but that is speculation. Could Miraak use Bend Will on Alduin? No, because it would not work on him. Granted, there are a few dragons that are immune to that shout, as others like Parthenax and Durnavir are also resistant to it as well. But in the case of Alduin, think of it like this. If the last Dragonborn who completed the Dragonborn DLC first, then fought Alduin after that, who would objectively be stronger than Miraak, could not bend Alduin's will with Bend Will, what makes you think Miraak could? So Bend Will is off the table. Could Miraak trap Alduin in Apocrypha? That is an interesting premise, as the Elder Scroll was able to deal with Alduin, so could the Black Books do the same thing? I mean, we have seen instances of dragons being trapped in another realm. Case in point, Durnavir and the Soul Cairn. Heck, those dragons under Miraak's control had to get into Apocrypha somehow, though I don't think that would work because that would imply the Black Books are comparable to the Elder Scrolls, and they most definitely are not. Besides, I don't think Hermaeus Mora would willingly want Alduin sent into his realm, as who's to say Alduin wouldn't do to Apocrypha what he planned to do to Sovngarde. Not to mention, looking at the lore in which Alduin consumes the world and the Kalpa, correct me if I'm wrong, Outerversal stuff is very confusing, but all the planes of Oblivion are a part of the Kalpa as well, meaning that they would end up getting destroyed as well when Alduin wipes out everything. Besides, even if you don't want to go that route, the examples of the Elder Scroll being used on Alduin and Durnevir being trapped in the Soul Cairn is different. The Elder Scroll flung Alduin through time, so it didn't even trap or restrain him, while for Durnevir, he willingly went to the Soul Cairn for more power and got tricked into staying, which led to him changing into his undead form. Besides, do you think Durnevir, before his time in the Soul Cairn, was comparable to Alduin? Probably not. Besides, who's to say that some of Alduin's loyal supporters wouldn't try to get him out, as we see dragons and the dragon priest Nakreen overseeing the portals of Sovngarde, so he could get out that way. So trapping Alduin might not work, and would you want the fight to end in that way? Now, what would happen if Miraak absorbed the soul of the last Dragonborn? Could he beat Alduin? Honestly, yeah, if that were to happen, Miraak would have the greatest chance of winning, compared to the other scenarios, because the last Dragonborn is so freaking powerful. It's ludicrous. If you want to know more about the power of the Dragonborn, I recommend watching my power scale on the last Dragonborn for additional context. The last Dragonborn is comparable to both Alduin and Miraak's greatest feats. For Alduin, it was engulfing Sovngarde and Mist repeatedly, while for Miraak, it was breaking Solstheim from mainland Skyrim. For the Sovngarde feat, even if lowballed to Sovngarde being the size of a planet, it is still a better feat. Also factor in that the last Dragonborn was able to disperse the mist multiple times over. Granted, they had help in doing it, but still, 1/4 of it surpasses the tectonic feat that Miraak did. Though, don't forget, for that feat, it happened during a fight between him and Valak. So Miraak should only get half the credit for that feat. Granted, this happened before Miraak was sent to Apocrypha, and theoretically would have gotten more powerful since then. Now, the argument can be made since Miraak was able to fight the last Dragonborn at the summit of Apocrypha, he should be comparable to them, especially if they defeated Alduin. Does that mean anything? No, it doesn't, since during that fight, Miraak had to absorb the souls of 3 dragons to heal and amp himself up. And when that didn't work, Miraak tried to run away, which led to Hermaeus Mora getting his tentacles on him. Miraak got cooked by the last Dragonborn, but if Miraak was, by some stroke of luck, was able to absorb the last Dragonborn's soul, no one is going to beat Miraak, and as a result, I think he would win in that scenario. Hey, it's Editor Faceless here from the future. One thing that I forgot to mention while recording initially was that Miraak had the ability to shout and kill dragons instantly. Could he do that against Alduin? The answer for that's going to be simple, no, because there's 2 ways you can look at. Either A, those dragons were under Miraak's control and he just told them to kill themselves, or B, Miraak was objectively more powerful than those dragons and as a result he could just instantly kill them. And as I said earlier before, Alduin is significantly stronger than Miraak, so I doubt that would really work, so that's not going to be a viable win condition for Miraak to win. Of all the many scenarios we did, Miraak wins 1 definitely, maybe 2 depending on how he handles himself with Dragonrend, but those wins happened because we had to give him some extra buffs to compete with Alduin. In a proper 1v1 without the buffs, Alduin wins. Besides, even if Miraak got lucky and could clench out a win, Miraak would be unable to absorb his soul, like what happened with the last Dragonborn, meaning he would come back and might try to settle the score, depending on how long it takes for Alduin to come back. Anyhow, tell me, what do you think of this matchup? Do you agree with me? Who do you think would win? Comment down below. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you leave a like and make sure you subscribe. Until next time, I'll catch you all on the flip side.